when you start talking about cultural creativity, that is the human capacity to actually add things to culture, to create more culture, create new culture, you really quickly get into questions of cultural power. Because, in fact, you can define cultural power as the ability to successfully propose a new cultural good. I find that of everyone I speak to about the subject of power, Christians are the ones who are most hesitant even to talk about it. And when we do talk about it, we usually talk about the negative side of power, power as coercion, power as sort of unjust accumulation. But if you think of power as the ability to create, if that's the first and most basic form of power, the ability to create new goods, then it seems to me we can't be primarily negative in how we think of it. We at least have to begin by acknowledging this is actually a part of the created world and the created kind of nature of human beings. Now, we can go on to talk about the distortions of power, and we see them all around us, and we can't deny that power can be deeply distorted. But at the beginning, power is about how to offer something to our neighbors that is seen as and is genuinely a good gift to a human society. This means that it's something we're all meant to have. And then part of what we have to do as Christians is ask, how can we be part of restoring power to people who currently have much less than they were intended to have? No human being can truly be said to be without power, because the consistent witness of Scripture is that God brings God's power alongside those who seem to have no power. The Christian vocation, it seems to me, is to spend our power alongside those who seem to not have power, to help them discover that, in fact, God is providing them with power to create, to cultivate where they are. The divine pattern is neither status quo, where those of us with power just keep it, and too bad for the rest of you, or revolution, where those with power are overthrown and a new group becomes the new Pharaoh. It's actually this divinely brokered partnership where the powerful are invited to spend their power on behalf of the powerless, and the powerless are invited to discover that actually God is at work in them. Well, the interesting thing about the moments in Scripture when God most decisively intervenes in history, and here we have to start with the Exodus. It is the moment when God, maybe in the most decisive way before the resurrection of Jesus, intervenes in history. It's amazing how it's not just a revolution. That is to say, the agent of the whole story of the book of Exodus is this interesting man named Moses, who has grown up in Pharaoh's court. So Moses actually has access to a lot of power. He knows how to get in. He knows how to get an audience with Pharaoh. At the same time, Moses is a Hebrew. He's a member of the oppressed slave caste of that society. God's purposes to declare his glory in the world are made known because Moses goes to Pharaoh and gives Pharaoh an opportunity to participate in God's liberation of his people. Now, Pharaoh refuses, and indeed, as Pharaoh continues to refuse, it says God hardens Pharaoh's heart. But that doesn't mean that God didn't have a purpose for this powerful Pharaoh of Egypt to be part of God's work in the world. I would want to distinguish between cultural power and political power. Political power marshals the capacity of the state to enforce norms, laws. And it always carries quite directly with it the state's threat, if not actual use, of force. I would distinguish that from cultural power, which is the ability to influence or to lure or to encourage creativity. Think about the power that a great musician has when they play a piece that they've practiced and worked on. Now, no one is compelling you to sit in the audience and listen or to press play on your CD player or your iPod. You seek it out because you want to experience that quality of beauty and goodness and challenge and complexity. And you might well be inspired, if, say, you're a young person listening to that, to actually take up that instrument and do something with it. Well, that person did really exercise a kind of power, but it was not a coercive power. They didn't make you do it. They didn't threaten you to do it. they actually created a picture of something so attractive that you wanted to participate in it. And while we can never fully separate these different kinds of power, I think we can distinguish between the power that's basically about the power to restrain and coerce on the one hand, and the power that can inspire and encourage on the other. And I think that latter kind, cultural power, is what we've actually spent too little time seeking as Christians. We've sought to shortcut that and go straight to how can we make people behave the way we want, rather than asking what cultural goods could we create that would be so compelling and attractive that our neighbors would want the kind of society that fosters those goods. When Christians create culture, we don't necessarily create Christian culture. That is, the cultural artifacts we create, first of all, should be created in partnership with our cultural neighbors, whether they share our faith or not. So it's not at all about us creating kind of a parallel Christian universe of cultural goods, although this is what many Christians have chosen to do. But what we're after is the restoration of human beings to their divinely given call to cultivate the world. All human beings, not just Christians. All of our neighbors, not just Christians. Now, the church has a unique and irreplaceable part to play in that. But we're doing it on behalf of all of our neighbors. So the culture we create ought to be accessible to and even engaged with and partially created by the neighbors who surround us. You could ask, what's at stake for Christians in the exercise of cultural power? Why should Christians care about this? And the funny thing is that I think our answer, first of all, doesn't have to do with what it is to be Christian, but what it is to be human. I believe that the biblical picture of what human beings are meant to be is that we are meant to be culture creators and culture cultivators, which is to say we're meant to have cultural power. And so this is not really a distinctively Christian topic or an exclusively Christian topic, except that as Christians, we believe that we have been, by the grace of God, given access to a revelation of true humanity in Jesus. And in a way, the presence of the church in the world is to be a picture of what restored human being is about, what restored humanity looks like. So we care about cultural power not because Christians should be the only ones to wield it, or even because we do it best. Some of the people who most express this image of God may not be Christians, but because we have a unique stake in calling people to the restoration of full humanity. And we've been given the unique privilege of seeing that in the face of Jesus Christ. And we want our neighbors to discover that true humanity, true cultural creativity, comes when you're made in, reborn into the image of Christ.